Right, I think we're alive and kicking, finally. Apologies for that. Just had to reset my Restream client for some reason. But I am now live on Facebook and live on YouTube as well, so you can check me out on either there. I do have the chat up on my PC, which I'm keeping an eye on if any of you guys want to get involved and ask any questions regarding this. Got 3 people watching already. Please say hello. I'm just going to quickly share this about on a few pages so we can get a few more people in here and get this conversation going. So just bear with me for a moment and I will get this one dropped. Hope you're all having a wonderful Monday evening. Hope you have a lovely weekend. If any of you did catch the Freedom Celebration, absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed being part of that. That was loads of fun once I eventually managed to get it all working. Still not sure exactly what the audio issues were there. If you are in the comments, just give me a shout if you can't hear anything again. I might just quickly go and check that out on the Facebook feed now just to make sure that everything's coming through live. Remembering the issues that I had the other day. So just bear with me because I got to get this quickly shared about with a few of the people, try and get some more people involved. Yeah, audio's coming through, fantastic. Right, where are these pages? We're going to be talking about organised anarchy today. And I'm perhaps going to be annoying a few anarchists because I'm going to be talking about authority, and I'm going to be talking about boundaries, and I'm going to be talking about borders, and I'm going to be talking about organisation and structure. And a lot of people that I've met so far who describe themselves as anarchists are particularly averse to those sorts of things, which we're going to come into more detail about that as we go through the discussion tonight. I'm hoping to get people involved in terms of talking as well. So your opinions are much appreciated as part of the stream. Let's just hope my dog doesn't knock the camera over while she's wandering around. Share that one. And I'll quickly drop this in a couple of other groups there. Got to be at least a couple more. Just bear with me one moment and I'll get started with the talk. There it is. Share that. One more. There it is. Anybody else wants to share this in any other groups, please do. And like I say, if you do want to have a chat, excellent. We've got people talking. There's Joe. Hi, Joe. Not heard from you in a very long time. Dan from Voluntarism. Thank you very much, Dan. Nice to speak to you. If you could just approve my post on voluntarism and natural law, that would be amazing. See if we can get a few more people in here for the conversation. Up to 8 on the stream now. Fantastic. Anybody else who is watching either on YouTube or on Facebook, please, Saskia, stop it. Oh. Bear with me one moment. I'm going to have to get rid of the dog because she's getting a little bit antsy. One moment. Saskia, go. Come on, away with you. Away. She's waiting on a nighttime walk, so I'm going to try and keep this fairly short. 6 people in there, fantastic. Right, okay, let's get started. So, organised anarchy, the world as we want it. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about anarchism. I'm going to talk about what it is not, more importantly, And then I'm going to talk a little bit about authority and jurisdiction and why it's important that we do actually have structure to things, and that there are some authorities to which we are subject, whether we like it or not. No matter what our political position happens to be, there are some authorities that are just innate, that, you know, whether we like it or not, we are subject to them. For example, you know, the laws of the universe, and the voice of the people, I suppose, more importantly. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. So anarchism. Anarchism is a political perspective which holds sovereignty of the individual as being the foundational unit. And this is, you know, again, something I totally agree with. I do self-describe as an anarchist. I don't feel like there should be any authority above us besides us as the collective people, I suppose. And the important thing about recognizing the sovereignty of the individual is that we all have really, really important skills to offer, and when we're all properly self-actualized as individuals, then we can, you know, work together to produce absolutely amazing things. Human beings, when they're fully balanced and fully self-realized as not only individuals on their own, but as collective communities which work together, can do some of the most amazing work. And, you know, arguably in terms of their ability to create our, you know, to our level of knowledge, you know, at least like one step below the grand creator themselves. There is no other authority on this earth besides that of the creator that can sort of resist the will of humanity to apply change and to transmute its environment. That's been shown, though obviously a lot of the changes that have occurred due to our current perspective have been negative. When again we are fully aligned, we can produce, you know, absolutely wonderful and amazing things that are in line with nature and are able to grow ourselves, but also nurture the planet on another level. So again, that recognition of this individual is very, very important, because if the individual doesn't have that sovereignty and isn't able to self-actualize, then we lose the ability to work together cohesively in cooperative competition rather than destructive competition. So anarchism is also a rejection of all forms of coercive authority and hierarchy. So again, you've got to understand that the individual sovereign units are the top. You know, they are the top of the pyramid. It's inverted pyramid. I prefer to think of it as the foundations. Without the foundations, anything above it cannot exist, and the things above, the things upon which those individuals are built, only exist because of the individuals. And again, you've got to keep that perspective in mind whenever you're considering these greater layers of sovereignty of collectives, that the individual's ability to self-govern is never infringed. And going into a little bit later about how that sort of all comes about in a practical sense. A belief in voluntary free association of individuals, and yes, that's very important. It's this voluntary decision by any individual sovereign to engage in trade with an entity, and that freedom again allows this friendly competition and allows this organic growth and organic advancement of us as a collective. Just going to have a quick look at the chat overhead. Just bear with me one moment. Joe's still there. Hobo Sapiens, Hyrix doing her and Maria's video yesterday. Many interesting points. I'd like to learn more about the way to assert sovereignty versus the system in Ireland. Excellent. Well, the info is sparse. Any tips? Thank you very much, Hobo. Please stay tuned. I would really be very, very interested in getting in touch with you. I'm building a network of people at the moment, whereby we are trying to reassert the land and soil jurisdiction, the common law of the land of Britain and Ireland, which have been denied to us for hundreds of years now, but there is historical evidence and documents we can quote to prove that this does actually exist, and it's just a matter of re-establishing it and recalling that. So I do have lots and lots of ideas, and Ireland is a really, really key place that I need to reach out to at this point, due to the nature of the way things are working and the way the United Kingdom itself came about. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about that later, so please stay tuned to the stream. Very, very pleased to have you here. So we've talked about what anarchism is and what I feel anarchism is supposed to be. Just bear with me 1 second. But I'm going to talk now about what anarchism is not, because what is not is almost as important as what it is. And what it is not is not an absence of the rule of law, and this is the whole negative spin that anarchy is given. This absence of the rule of law, and that doesn't necessarily. I'm not even talking necessarily just from the mainstream here. I'm talking about there are certain anarchists I have met who don't think we should have any laws at all, and that people will just conduct themselves however. And again, not on board with that at all. There has to be some sort of common law, some way by which we all agree to trade and we all agree to work with each other, because again, without that there's no trust, and you need trust in order to trade. You can only trust somebody if you know how they're going to operate and how they're going to work, and how they're going to treat you. And that's, again, there needs to be this sort of level of base law upon which we agree, some sort of common understanding under which we can all agree to govern ourselves and to collectively manage our lands. So anarchism is not an aversion to boundary, structure, or organisation. And I've had this one, let's just say, without going into too much detail. I've been in touch with an organisation recently, whom I was trying to work with in common understanding. And one of the members of that group seem to be extremely averse to the idea of defining any sort of boundaries, which I find quite odd, because a lot of anarchists will talk about not having any borders or not having any boundaries, and I can understand that in the sense of not having something that is stopping you from going there. Yes, for sure, everyone should be able to roam freely. However, that doesn't mean you shouldn't have borders in terms of taking charge of something, because the land, we're responsible as human beings for managing, as mankind, let's say, womankind. I need to stop using the word human, don't want to define myself as a slave, but as living beings, we've got a responsibility to take care of this world that we've been brought into, and that we can only really take care of it if we have common areas that we agree on. There are groups of people that look after that. And this is where the whole idea of land and soil law comes in. You've got to have a boundary, otherwise people can just do anything anywhere. And do you want open cast mines to be just dug wherever someone fancies digging it? Probably not. Do you want someone just to be able to come and pitch a tent on your lawn, or build a driveway on your lawn to park their car on? No, of course you don't want that. You want boundaries to your own land, don't you? Okay, right, well, if there's boundaries to your individual land, what's anything that's not any individual's land? Well, that's common land then, yeah? You need common land, you need common people to manage it. There needs to be a voluntary group of people that say, okay, well, we'll take responsibility for making sure that nobody harms that land, that we don't harm it by our, use of it as a road, or use of it as a common field for farming, or whatever else. We need to have, again, some group of people that are willing to volunteer to do that, and not do it in the sense of restricting anybody from working on there, but just making sure we all know what the rules are in that space. So again, we can't have this aversion to boundaries or structure or organisation, because otherwise, what world are we going to be left with? How many anarchists don't want to be able to turn on a switch and have power? How many anarchists don't, want the roads to fall apart? How many anarchists don't want to have, an internet? There's how many anarchists don't want some sort of peacekeeping force to help look after their sovereign land? If someone decides that they want to try and, invade it or whatever, do we not want to have a group of people who are going to come and help us defend that? Who are going to help us defend our persons? Well, of course we do. And for that, we need some sort of organization, some sort of structure, something that we can all collectively get behind and agree on the way we're going to conduct ourselves in this common space, and the way we're going to manage this common space. Because I don't know, does everybody want to be personally responsible for the bit of the road up to the middle of the road, halfway to the next house? Do we all want to parcel up every single piece of land on the whole planet and have it all owned by an individual person? I don't think we do. I don't think we do. Do we want to have our resources restricted? Do we want anybody to be able to just go and dig them up and take them away whenever they want? Like, there's so many layers to this that we need some sort of structure. And anarchy is an even harder form of governance, because it is a form of governance. It's just a form of voluntary governance and common assent and common law and minimalism in terms of, the bare minimum structure that we actually need in order to function as a society. So again, we've got to have something in place that is going to manage this. Otherwise, we're never going to get enough people on board to move us away from the system where we are at the minute, where we're being subjugated and losing our businesses and being restricted from traveling because we won't take a vaccine or whatever else. It's even harder because there's no one person calling the shots. We all have to collectively come together to call the shots, and we've got to be able to all put our egos aside. And perhaps there are some people who don't even want to be even remotely involved in that level. They just want to go and live their lives and get on with it. Well, that's fine. We build a system that will leave them to their own devices in their own space, and that has to be the fundamental basis on which we build everything else. The individual has to be sovereign within their own body and within their own household and within their own land. Outside of that land, they are in common space, and they have to be expected to conduct themselves in terms of the rules of that common space. Let's talk about authority. As far as I'm concerned, there are two absolutely supreme authorities on planet Earth, beyond which we cannot deny that these authorities exist. We are unable to resist them, shall we say. And the supreme authority is universal natural law, the voice of God or the universe, however you want to perceive that. Those base laws on which the universe operates, and the series of cause and effect that has been put in place in order to get this universe moving in motion. Right? If we're going to be struck by an asteroid, broadly speaking, there's very little we can do about that. We can't, we don't really have the technology at the minute. If you're going to be hit by a bolt of lightning, you're going to be hit by a bolt of lightning. If a rock's going to fall on your head, a rock's going to fall on your head. If you're going to slip going down some stairs and break your neck and die, then that's what's going to happen. And there's very little you can do outside of that. So we are subject to that natural law, that authority, that supreme authority of the universe, full stop. The second thing we are also subject to is universal common law, which is the agreed upon ways that which we interact with each other, the universal maxims under which we all agree. This is the voice of the people and the convention, what we do by common convention. Think of this as just your basic three tenets for universal common law, because I'm pretty sure everyone can agree that causing harm is wrong, causing loss to someone is wrong, and not conducting yourself with dignity, so defrauding people. Apologies. Throat's getting really dry. Those base three tenets that we can all agree on, regardless of culture. Beyond that, you're starting to get into law of the land, which is, you know, your differences in separate cultures in different areas of what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable in that public space, in that common, on those common grounds. So have a quick look here. Agreed on borders. Our bodies are our own boundary and property. Humans are territorial in nature, so our extended habitat comes under our property rights along with our body and personal property. Exactly, Crash. Thank you very much for that comment. Very insightful, exactly what I'm saying to people. This is where we're starting to get onto this idea of trade. Because we all need to trade. We all have to interact with other human beings, and any interaction is a trade. I was saying this in my live stream. If anybody enjoying it, the Freedom Celebration, thank you very much. But I was saying on the Freedom Celebration live stream, every interaction between two human beings is a trade between two living creatures. There is an energy exchange that is going on. Something is being given from one being to another. And this is the same way, like, again, you can zoom in on yourself and think about how your own body works. Every cell is trading with other cells and trading with its body and trading with its environment, and all those cells, while they're individually able to survive, given the right environment and access to the correct amount of resources, they don't become this complex and amazingly, you know, amazing machine that is the man and the woman, the living being. It's only when those cells come together and agree to work towards a common purpose and to trade under a common understanding and to manage those collective resources and to, as a collective, move through the world and acquire resources that they need from elsewhere. And this is the same idea. We've got to have this fractal idea of what the self is. The self is you, but your family is a living entity as well. And again, we're talking within those borders. The people who live in those borders should manage that land collectively together under common understanding. And the trade that goes on between those individuals within those borders needs to be based on, again, a set of common understanding. There's two functions that an anarchist government has, an anarchist system of organization. Let's not call it a government because the G word scares people. I'm not sure which G word scares people more, God or government. But when I say government, don't think, when I'm talking about lawful government, that I'm talking about any system of hierarchy or subjugation. No, you are at the top. You, collectively, all of you, me, us, we, the people, we are collectively at the top. And every other entity that is created is in service to that. Yeah? Any entities we create to manage those common lands, they're not standing above the people who live on those lands, they're standing underneath the people who live on those lands. They're in service to. You could say standing side by side, working with, trading with, if you like, whatever perspective makes you feel comfortable. Because it's all perspective. We've got to, you know, change the way we think about certain things or find other words. If we can't agree on, you know, a different understanding of a word like government or system or organization or authority, then we've just got to have to find another word and apply the meaning that we can all commonly come to on that. And this is why it's important, again, that we get people in a room together, in a forum together, in a place where they can start to discuss. Discussion is absolutely key for this organized anarchy to work. Those who want to be involved in that common management need to step up and they need to start having those conversations. They need to start putting their egos to one side and asking the big tough questions. Do you want a police force? Do we want a police force? Do we want a peacekeeping task force? If there's a crime committed, do we want professionals who know what they're doing and are passionate about it to go and figure out what happened? Or do we want to just have to figure that out for ourselves with, you know, our next to no expert knowledge at all? No human being is capable of doing every job that needs doing in society on their own. So we need that level of trade. And that trade only comes again from that common understanding. Anyway, whittled on way too long there about authority and trade. We will come back to all these. I've got a couple of diagrams on the board. I'm not sure you can see them particularly well, but I'll describe them to you and talk you through them in a little bit more detail when we get to them. But I want to talk now about jurisdiction. And this is necessarily tied into the idea of authorities and sovereignty. Because if you're going to say you are sovereign, then you are sovereign over what? What is your jurisdiction to your sovereignty? Where does your sovereignty end and someone else's sovereignty begin? There has to be a line. There has to be a line. And in some cases, that might be fluffy in terms of interpersonal relationships and trade and stuff like that. There's no necessarily solid boundaries, and this is why you need juries and, you know, common convention of the people to come to some sort of understanding on how that all works and what are the particulars of that situation and how is the law applied in that sense. But on a more personal level, your jurisdiction has to stop at, you know, some space around you. In terms of a land body, your home, your house, you know, the place where you make your bed and you rest and you live and you grow your food, if that's what you do, that space has to have borders to it. Otherwise, where can you stop people from infringing? You can't have a jurisdiction without boundaries. If you want to talk about sovereignty, you've got to have boundaries for that sovereignty. It's as simple as that. You can't say I am self-sovereign, but my boundaries have no boundaries, because then you're just saying that I am king of the universe. You've got to have some end to it. You've got to have some end to it. You know, the alternative, again, you've got to think about this in 3 dimensions as well. We're not just talking about like a piece of land, like a flat square on a map. We're talking about depth and height as well. Let's imagine, you know, I'm not sure if I've got any flat earthers in here. If I do have any flat earthers in here, apologies for my baller, analogies, but we can sort that shit out later. I'm not interested in arguing about it now. If we've got a sphere and we're going to divide each individual patch of land and say that bit from the infinite below to the center of the Earth's core, all the way out to infinity in this massive ever-expanding cone is all yours, that's an awful lot of space for one person to manage. That's an awful lot of space. It's got to stop somewhere. It has to stop somewhere. And this is where the idea of land and soil jurisdiction comes from, because they're 2 separate but fundamentally intertwined jurisdictions. In fact, they're all kind of intertwined on a more fundamental level, because you've got to think about it in terms of layers. The land is like the bedrock almost. I mean, not the true bedrock, but the deep portions of the earth, the actual land mass of the earth. That's the land jurisdiction. Down towards from the core all the way up to, you know, arguably the topsoil, the top 6 feet. The argument there is that the top 6 feet of soil is where we make our living. This is the space in which we grow our crops. This is the place into which we dig our foundations. The deep mineral resources fall under land law, where that space where we live on the surface of the earth falls into soil law. And soil law is this band, which again includes, say, the top 6 feet or so of soil into where we dig our foundations and into which we grow our food and we plant our trees. And it also includes the immediate airspace above that land, the immediate airspace for all practical purposes. And again, there is fluff to this, but this has to be determined by a jury of the people in the situation whom are going to be affected by it. And again, tying back to this idea of organisation, we need to have a bank of people where we can say these people have all agreed to be self-sovereign, these people have all agreed to operate on these base 3 tenets of cause no harm, cause no loss, do not defraud, and these people can be counted on now to make a decision about whether that infringes someone else's sovereignty. And there is always going to be this contextual fluff. We can't try and legislate for every situation, otherwise we end up exactly where we are now with this ridiculous legal system, where no one person actually really understands the whole thing top to bottom. Just quickly check over here. natural law, courts for murder, rape, assault, theft, coercion, arbitration, dispute resolution for anything contractual. Yeah, and this is it though. We need this bank of people who agreed upon this basic idea. And how do we know that people are going to be agreed on this basic idea? Well, they'll have to sign some sort of document. They have to make some sort of contractual obligation to society to agree to behave in a certain manner. And that's what we need to be able to offer to people for this lawful land jurisdiction. You will be left alone on your own bit of land to do whatever you want, provided you cause no harm, cause no loss, conduct yourself with dignity. When you are in the common space, you will be expected to behave in a manner which is commonly agreed upon by the people who live in that common space. Simple as that. Simple as that. There's a basic idea that we need to all be able to agree on. And if we can all agree on that, if all of you, the 4 remaining people in this chat, there were 8 people, 6 people before, 4 remaining people in this chat, if you guys are willing to operate on those base principles, then we can start to build something. We can start to build back. I mean, not build because it's already there, reclaim this land and soil jurisdiction. When you think about it contextually, the land and the soil is the crust of the earth. The sea sits on top of the crust. So the sea only exists because the land exists. That's why the land jurisdiction is supreme to maritime jurisdiction. That's why common law trumps maritime law and statute law, because the sea lies on the land. So that land law is supreme because the sea land lies on it. And again, the air wraps the crust of the earth, the land. Yeah? And again, the air is sitting on the land. So the sea and the air law, maritime law and canon law, they are naturally inferior to land law because the land existed before the sea and before the sky. The land was the first thing to come into being. Therefore, it is supreme. So the true names, again, of these 3 fundamental jurisdictions that we've got are the land and the soil law, commonly known as the law of the land. And this covers the deep mineral resources, which are managed collectively. Again, we don't want people open cast mining wherever they fancy it, in the middle of our village green, just decide, oh, there's some coal down there, I'm going to dig that up. We want to be able to manage that so it doesn't disrupt the whole community. And that we're all, able to benefit from those common resources. Again, we don't want one person deciding they want to go and dig it all up and ship it off to another country. Like that's ours. Why are you taking it away? We might need that one day. We collectively, again, we the people, need to be in some common organization, some common system of collectively managing those resources that is able to deal with those problems. So again, like I say, we need some system by which we can all agree to come together and we know who we're dealing with. This is where the documentation comes in. This is where I'm going to just grab it for you now, because it does exist. And I am now working towards getting this stuff notarized. After Christmas, I am going to be getting this done. I'll do it out of my own pocket. Not had a word with them yet, but I suspect it might cost a couple of £100 to get it actually done. But I'm going to get 2 of these. Witness testimony affirming Great Britain national political status and identity. 2 witness statements. And then I get this one filled in. There's 3 documents. Once those done, I'm then forming the land jurisdiction of the United Kingdom. Not because I want to rule anybody. I don't care. I want out. As soon as this thing is built, as soon as it's running, I'm done with it. I don't want anything more to do with it. I'm going to fuck off to Wales. I'm going to get myself a nice little bit of land, and I'm going to live out my days. The moment this thing is going, and I know it's got some legs and it's moving somewhere, I don't want to be involved in actually running the country. I don't want to be involved in it. I want us to be able to collectively do it. And I'm willing to give it enough legs to get it moving and to make it something where we can start to collectively meet. And then the only time we come together to discuss anything is when there's something that needs to be discussed. Other than that, we'll just be nice to each other, stay out of each other's way, and we don't, we just live our lives and get on with what we need to do. But first, we need to sort this mess out. We need to sort out this maritime governance. We need to reclaim our common natural land and soil law. And the only way we know we're going to be able to trust anybody to work with them is if they have signed some sort of collective contract that we're all able to collectively agree on. And we need to have some way of very easily finding out if they've done this. Enter the international land records. Then I'm giving out IDs in America which have QR codes on them, where American nationals, if they scan them, they will prove to them that they've been declared as an American national and that they stand outside of maritime jurisdiction. From what I understand as well, people have used these to passport already. They've already passed port with them. These things have been shown to work in the real world. So again, pushing forward with this. So again, let's have a look at these little maps. I'm not sure how well you can see them. I've drawn a bunch of houses here on either side of the street, just to get people into the idea that there are sovereign, self-sovereign lands and there are sovereign common lands. For example, each one of these homes has a person that lives in them, and that home is that person's sovereign land. It's their own kingdom. Nobody can tell them what to do in that home. However, on the street outside, everybody has to behave in a manner that is acceptable to everyone. That is, not causing harm or loss or defrauding or otherwise disturbing people. They need to be able to agree on a common way of behaving in common space, to engage in common trade. There is not just a million pieces, 65 million pieces of sovereign land in the United Kingdom. There is common space as well that we all share. And if we want our water to still work, if we want our roads to not fall apart, if we want our electricity to still work until we've rebuilt a system that serves us better, then we need to be able to collectively manage those lands. It's as simple as that, because otherwise we can't trade. Otherwise we don't protect those deep mineral resources. We can't protect the forests. We can't stop pesticides from being sprayed unless we've got a collective voice that says, no, that is not acceptable in the place that we collectively live. Then we've got no way of enforcing any kind of authority or jurisdiction or land law. We've got to have people who are agreed that that is the system under which they stand, and the foundations upon which they're willing to build something. Now, what I've done is I've been trying to get a group of people together that I can trust. Because the moment I have this documentation together, I will be prepared to get a seal created for the nation of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, because that's the entity we've got to replace, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So we'll call it the United Peoples of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Or the United Peoples of Britain, Northern Ireland, whatever we collectively want to call it. I'll get a seal made up for that so I can start creating recorders. So the big issue we've got is that there needs to be some authority given to this documentation. At the minute, the only jurisdiction we can access is a maritime law. So you've got public notaries and notary publics. And they're two fundamentally different offices. The same person can hold both roles and put different hats on to operate in different jurisdictions. A public notary is going to be dealing with the transition from land and soil law. A public notary, lowercase, deals with the transition from land and soil law to maritime law. A notary public deals with the transition from maritime law to canon law. Yeah, So the different jurisdictions. I need to get someone to be a public notary to see this documentation, which will transition me from maritime law into common law. Once I am in common law jurisdiction, I can act as a public notary for land law, and my seal overrides any maritime seal because I'm standing on the land and soil, which is the fundamental jurisdiction from which all the others are derived. Okay? So I need people who are prepared, who will say to me, fantastic, here are my witnesses, come down, witness this documentation, put the seal on there, give me a seal, and then I will act for the Nation of England Assembly. I will act for the nation of Scotland. I will act for the nation of Wales. I will act for the nation of Ireland or Northern Ireland, wherever it is you happen to be. We have to accept that at the moment these are two separate entities, and until we, the people, a collective that can represent the people, agree on unifying or passing Northern Ireland over to the Irish or whatever we want to do, we can't deal with that until we have a land jurisdiction to deal with it. We've got to rebuild it, which means we need people in each nation that are standing on the land and soil in England, in Ireland, in Scotland, in Wales, in Northern Ireland. We need people in each county within each of those nations that are willing to, once again, stand in land and soil jurisdiction. Lancashire, Yorkshire, Cheshire, Cornwall, Devon, all the ancient counties, which I'm going to get maps for. I've sourced them. They'll be £25 for me to get maps. They're in incredible levels of PDF details. There'll be no ifing and butting about it. We'll know exactly where everybody stands, and someone will be able to literally give me their postcode and their address, and I'll be able to say, okay, you are in that jurisdiction. There you are. That person's your land recording secretary. Print off those documents. Get yourself 2 witnesses. Head down to that person's house, and they will get you signed up. The moment you do that, you don't have to pay any income tax. Unless you're causing harm or loss, the police cannot touch you. And if they try and bring you into one of those courts, you prove them wrong and you walk back out, and this is how you do it. There will be a script that you can literally go in and read and go there, 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 there. Okay? Thank you. I'm gone. Bye. I do not stand in your court. I'm not stepping into your jurisdiction because I live on the land. You are dealing with maritime law, and I do not want to be disturbed any longer. You will prove once and for all that the birth certificate is not you, that you are not a corporate fiction, that you are a living person standing on the land and they can't touch you. Because you are the people. You are a representation of we the people that gave you the power in the first place. All monarchs, all governments are subject to the voice of the people. If we all turn around and say, no, they can't stop us. They can't. It's not possible. We are too many. They are physically unable to resist the voice of the people. So we have to prove to them that we are the voice of the people. We have to prove to them that we are standing in this land and soil jurisdiction. We are standing in common law. We are standing on the land. We need to have documentation. We need to have some sort of system where if a policeman stops you, you can show them a card and say, excuse me, mate, nothing to do with you. You're dealing with maritime policy. Check this information. Give it a quick scan with your phone now. Yeah, this will prove to you that I am now standing on the land of Britain. I am not in Crown jurisdiction. Off you pop. You cannot detain me. And if you do, you will suffer the consequences for it because it's illegal. And I proved to you that it's illegal. And this will work. It will work. The beauty of it is we don't need to send anything to them either. And as long as we lie low and we don't get in trouble, then they won't even know that this is being built. In terms of like the general populace, most people won't know it's happening until it's already happened. We will be there before they know it. We'll be in the offices. We'll replace most of the government system, torn it down or vacated it or turned it into whatever else so we can minimalise our government and relocalise it. And we'll just shut it down. And nobody will starve and nobody's going to riot because all the jobs that were going to be done will still be getting done. Because we will create the money necessary to get them done. And that's the other key, is being able to create money. If the way we can get by without anybody ever being taxed is whenever somebody is doing work for the common good, and can prove that they're doing it for the common good, we gift them the funds to do that. And they give it to the people who do the work for them. It's simple. You build a house for a homeless person, you should just be credited for that. There doesn't need to be a debt attached. You just get credit. You're just credited for it. It's simple. And as long as you're engaging in that common good, you create money. And that money can then be spent within the population on other people who are trading for their own personal benefit. Whenever common good is being done, we create the funds to make that happen. And then those funds can be spent in society. And people accept that because they will know that money has only been created for a good cause. It's not been used to harm anybody. All it has ever been used is to help people. Trade is conducted again with that money, which will go into society. The people who are building the houses, the people who are sitting in the recording offices, stamping documents all day, making sure that people are on the land jurisdiction, you know, they're spending time, they should be compensated for it, they should be credited. We don't need debt, we can just credit people. Thank you very much, you've done a good job for society, you deserve to be credited for that. There doesn't need to be a debt attached, we just create the credit. Easy peasy. Time input, resources out. I've whittled on for quite long enough. Do we have any questions here? Let's have a look. Crash, bang, wallop. Police could work under a free market system with competing entities, all holding public liability insurance to keep them in line lawfully. Well, yeah, I suppose there's definitely that. I mean, but these are all discussions that we need to commonly come to some understanding of. I love the fact that you're getting involved in it. What I would say to anybody who is really, really serious about getting involved, I hate to say it, I will create a Facebook group for you. I will create a Facebook group that we can use on our phones, but I will not invite anybody who has not shown me that they are capable of using a computer or something to access a platform which is ours. One of you might notice YouTube and Gmail was down this morning, and I kind of almost thought that maybe like we were starting to kind of hoped maybe we were starting to see the big crash. Is it really starting to go down? Is YouTube just gone out of business? No, it's still alive, isn't it? What's going to happen one day? Because it's a corrupt criminal corporation, it will be brought down. And we need to be in a place where we can still communicate if that happens. So anybody who really actually seriously wants to get involved and wants to be able to start bringing people, the first thing we need to do before anything else is bring people into our land jurisdiction. We need to set up a system by which that can happen, because we can't have a land jurisdiction without people in it. Land jurisdiction can't be a land jurisdiction unless it has boundaries. So I'm going back to the ancient counties, because they are already defined. We don't need to go out and use an ordnance survey map to map everything in excruciating detail, because it does need to be mapped in excruciating detail. We can't have any fluff with land boundaries. We have to have solid, hard land boundaries that people agree the collective people in these lands will manage those. And that doesn't mean they can't overlap at different layers. Don't get me wrong, they can still overlap. You know, and beneath the county level, at the very first, we're going to need to have some sort of entities that will manage the metropolitan areas, like Greater Manchester. Because there's such a dense interacting population that it just makes sense to have one entity that's looking after it. And Manchester spills over into Cheshire and Trafford, and you know it goes all the way along the Mersey, all the way to the West Coast. So, you know, we need some entity that is capable of managing that. And again, that'll have to sit below or inside or somewhere on the borders of the county level. I don't know. In America, they have what they call independent cities, which I believe operate in some capacities as a county and in other capacities operate as a parish. Sorry, let me get this right. The terminology is a bit different over there because they have states as well. So yeah, there are some independent cities which operate as a county within a state, even though they're much smaller. So again, like, we're going to have to find some sort of system of organising that as well. Yeah, I have written on for quite long enough. Is there anybody else in the chat here who wants to ask me any questions? I'm only seeing stuff come up so far from Crashbang Wallet. Let's see if I can find anything on the Facebook feed. Maybe I'm missing some stuff on there. Comments. Audio is crackly. Nope, not much traction there on the Facebook feed. It does seem like Restream is not particularly good onto Facebook itself. Looks like most of my views here are from the YouTube channel. Anyway, anyone here who's actually interested in getting involved and wants to become part of this network of people that are going to start bringing people into this land and soil jurisdiction under common law, with the whole idea of bringing this, corporate bullshit down, then go and get yourself signed up on lawfulbank.com and send me a personal message on there. You can find me, look for Rick Paris in the search bar, add me as a friend and send me a personal message saying you want to be a lawful land recorder. If I can get you, for sure, with your real name and face, you need to figure out some way of uploading a photo of your actual face. I will then try and get you into the Facebook group then. And we can use that as an easy way of on the go checking up on each other. Because Lawful Bank is a pain to use on your mobile. It is possible, and I do it. But it is not the easiest thing to do. It's fairly time consuming, but it is possible. The reason I'm going to make it as simple as that is that you need to get onto Lawful Bank. Because I need to know that you're going to be able to use a computer on a basic level. Because not only are you going to be stamping those documents, you're then going to be putting them onto the land recording system and getting credentials ordered so these people can prove that they are not UK citizens, that they are British nationals. Homo sapien, that's fine. I mean, you can communicate with me on lawfulbank.com. I'd rather have this whole conversation on there. But I've tried, and poor my friend Neil Warren has been beating his head against the wall for years, trying to get people to use Lawful Bank. It's really, really important. If you can get on a PC or a Mac or something like that, get on lawfulbank.com, get yourself signed up. It's a site that needs a lot of work. I'm not going to lie to you. It's far from perfect. It is dated. It needs a real decent overhaul. But because it's self-owned, we don't really have the funds at the moment. The two main people, myself and Neil Warren and a handful of others, just don't have the money to throw at getting Lawful Bank tied up and make it into a platform that works easily on your phone or on, any sort of mobile device or tablet. You're going to need a PC or a laptop at the very least. Because again, I'm not sure you're going to be able to use the land recording system from a phone. I think you're going to need to be able to use a PC to upload versions of those documents and prove that you are standing in the land jurisdiction in order to, again, get that paperwork completed and have that system in place whereby we can easily find out if the person we're talking to is someone we can trust and someone we can work with, because we need to stop working with the people who are operating or work less with the people who are operating still in the maritime jurisdiction. Anybody else got any more questions? I'm looking to wrap it up round about now. So if anybody has anything to comment, anybody want to ask any questions? Otherwise, I would be looking forward to hearing some friend requests on Lawful Bank. That would be really cool. I can get people in a Facebook group. That's the easiest way to communicate. I just want people communicating. I want people to be able to bring other people on board, because we can only be the voice of the people if everybody understands how the system works. It's very easy for people to get the wrong idea about what I'm talking about. I've been accused of being a power grabbing statist, and that's the last thing I want. I really don't want to rule anybody. I just want us to rule us. I want us collectively to have some way that we can just get on with our lives without all of this bullshit. We can get rid of the lies, and the last thing I want to do is run a